Hodesh Tov B'Siman Tov. Today, the 30th of Sivan, first day of Rosh Hodesh Tammuz, Haba Aleinu Letovah, corresponding to the 26th day of June 2025. Today's special breakfast and class has been graciously sponsored by Mr. Joseph Falak and children from Brooklyn, New York, Le'ilu Nishmat, his beloved wife, their beloved mother, Mrs. Susan Falak, Shoshana Bat Simcha, Aliyah Shalom. Iratzon that to the words of Torah, her neshama have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. Be'ezat Hashem will save a lot of the information for Rosh Hodesh Tammuz tomorrow, since tomorrow is actually when the month of Tammuz actually starts. Today we're still borrowing from the month of Sivan, which is great, and tomorrow we're going to be welcoming Tammuz in a more official way. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam She'akol Nihiyah B'Dbaro. Beautiful. I'd like to start to discuss, as we all know, obviously being Rosh Hodesh, we do have to speak about it for a bit. The day of Rosh Hodesh, it's a day that has, number one, a lot of blessings. That's why people say Hodesh Tov B'Siman Tov. When Rosh Hodesh comes, the Siman Tov, the good Mazal, the Berachot start flowing to Am Israel, individually and collectively. That's why there is a Siman in the Shulchan Aruch that says that one of the ways that a person honors Rosh Hodesh is, besides the prayers that we did today, beautiful prayers with Hallel, Musaf, Sefer Torah, the whole thing, and more olim than on the weekday, and we dress elegantly in honor of Rosh Hodesh. We also do a Sa'udat Rosh Hodesh, and that's exactly what happens today. We have a beautiful breakfast sponsored by the Falak family, and it's their zechut that is also Sa'udat Rosh Hodesh. So that by itself, it tells us how powerful is the day of Rosh Hodesh. But I'm going to share with the Kahal Kadosh something fascinating. Rosh Hodesh has a combination of weekday, Shabbat, and Yom Tov. All, yani, if you want to summarize, give me one day in the year that has Shabbat, Yom Tov, and weekday, thank you, is the day of Rosh Hodesh. Allow me to explain this better. It's connected to weekday because we put on tefillin and we drive and we use the cell phone and we touch money. So that's the weekday element. But when it comes to the Musaf of Rosh Hodesh, what do? We remove the tefillin because the Kedusha of Rosh Hodesh is higher than the Kedusha of the weekday. If every weekday of the calendar carries a certain level of sanctity, Rosh Hodesh is an upgraded extra leg room, front row, recliner seat. That's the upgrade of Rosh Hodesh. Also, in the Olim of the Sefer, we have 4 instead of 3. Aliyot, weekday, 3. Rosh Hodesh, 4. So that alone, it tells me Rosh Hodesh is higher. Then we have Hallel. Hachamim established one of the 7 mitzvot established by our Hachamim is the mitzvah of saying Hallel in Rosh Hodesh. Interesting enough, as we have learned in the past, in Perashat Bo, the mitzvah of honoring and celebrating Rosh Chodesh is a mitzvah ta'aseh from the Torah It's a biblical commandment to celebrate Rosh Hodesh, but it's a rabbinical determination when Rosh Hodesh is. You understand? So we get like a combo package. We have the mitzvah. The Torah says, celebrate Rosh Hodesh. So you come back to the Torah and you ask, okay, you're telling me to celebrate Rosh Hodesh. How do I do it? Oh, go ask your rabbi. That's the reason why the mitzvah of Rosh Hodesh is the first mitzvah from the Torah. Look in Parashat Bereshit. Rashi says it. The opening statement of the Torah should have been, a Hodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Hodashim. So then why did we start from Bereshit? You gave me 2,400 years of history when you wanted to tell me Rosh Hodesh. No, God is telling us the world is mine. I created the world. I put the Jewish people in Eretz Israel. That's the reason why the Torah begins from Bereshit bara Elokim to tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Borei Olam and he does what he pleases with the world. Look in Rashi in the beginning of Parashat Bereshit. But that also Rashi says, Vayeta Lamar B'Yishak, Vayeta HaTorah Sericha Le'atchil Ella, Me'achodesh Hazeh Lachem, Rosh Chodashim. So Chacham Mordechai Eliyahu Alev Shalom, that we remember his life this past Shabbat, that was the Yortzeit, and he asked this question. From all of the mitzvot of the Torah, why do you pick the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh that is only once a month? Pick another mitzvah that happens every day. And the great rabbi says, because Rosh Chodesh is a mitzvah from the Torah, but who gives me the guidelines of Rosh Chodesh? Hachamim. That's the combination package of Rosh Chodesh. So we cover Rosh Chodesh as a weekday. We cover Rosh Chodesh as a mini Yom Tov. That's why in many communities, some people don't do laundry in Rosh Chodesh. According to the Yehuda Hasid, no haircuts in Rosh Chodesh. No work, you can work. You should work every day. Yes, you and everybody else, including the speaker. But if you want to go out with your family, with your friends, in honor of Sa'udat Rosh Chodesh, you should definitely do it. Because it's a miniature Yom Tov. It's a miniature. I know some restaurants throughout the world, they have Rosh Chodesh menu. They give you a full package. Sure, meat, a bit of wine, bread, so you can make a mossi, appetizer, the whole spiel. Now, I already gave a couple of ideas to the restaurant industry now. Special Rosh Chodesh menu. You know, in Mexico, there is a chain of kosher restaurants. Fascinating what they do. You know what they do? If you go out with your wife to eat, and you are a teacher in a yeshiva, you work in a Jewish school, or the husband is in the kollel, they get 40% discount in the restaurant. I saw it with my own eyes. And there is a sign. If you work for the community as a rabbi, as a avrech for the kollel, or as a teacher in the yeshiva, and you go out to the restaurant, certain restaurants, I think 4 or 5 at least, from the same ownership, 40% discount. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Big zechut. It's a big zechut for those who can do it. Okay? But let's go back. And that's why, as I said in the beginning, there is a halacha in the Shulchan Aruch that says, do Sa'udat Rosh Chodesh. But how Rosh Chodesh connects to Shabbat? So, the short answer is, I gave you one short answer before, that when it comes to tefillin of Rosh Chodesh, in Rosh Chodesh, when it comes to Musaf, we remove the tefillin. Because the Musaf belongs to Rosh Chodesh, and the tefillin belongs to the weekday. So in order for me to make this spiritual transition, so we do this switch. We take off the tefillin, I'm no longer in weekday mode, now I'm upgraded to Rosh Chodesh. which is imperative for me to say the following statement before I move on, that Rosh Hodesh also has a nickname, Yom Tov the Nashim, the holiday of the Jewish women. Is God gives to the Jewish women the day of Rosh Hodesh based on the unfortunate situation that developed with the sin of the golden calf. When the Egel took place, and Moshe Rabbeinu, obviously, we know the tragic end of the story, that the Luchot were destroyed, and Moshe Rabbeinu made an announcement, Mila Hashem Elai, who is the Yisrael is working? Who is with God? Basically, Moshe Rabbeinu's question is there a tribe that did not become affected by the sin of the golden calf? Regretfully, every tribe had people involved in the sin, with one exception, Levi. Vayasefu elav kol bnei Levi. The tribe of Levi went behind Moshe Rabbeinu. But you know who else did not participate in the Egel? The women. There was no lady that participated in the sin of the Egel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you sanctify my name by refusing to participate in the sin of the golden calf. I'm gifting you a day, the day of Rosh Hodesh. That's why in some communities, the ladies don't do laundry in Rosh Hodesh. In some communities, the ladies don't do certain things that they may do otherwise during the week. And this is to support what the great Rosh Yeshiva yesterday, Mega Talmid Chacham, you can see it right away, and a holy man, Baruch Hashem. And you remember what he said when Miriam sang the Shirah. She says to the ladies, don't worry, even though that the ladies in many spiritual reasons are exempt of the mitzvot, or even to learn Torah with the same requirement that a man has, because you are the one that enables the husband to be able to go to pray with the minyan, to give the peace of mind to the home, to run the kashrut, to run the family purity, etc. So that's greater than the men's action in the Avodat Hashem. And the same thing happened with Rosh Hodesh. I tell you a secret. The Hidah Kadosh brings down a very powerful statement. And I say the word powerful because I believe it is, concerning the Jewish calendar. The Hidah writes that the original plan was that every holiday should have its own, every Rosh Hodesh, every month rather, Mehila, every month should have its own holiday. But because of the sin of the golden calf, there was a shift in the calendar. And the month of Tammuz, we have no holiday. Actually, we have a fast day. That's what we're learning now, Bekiim Ba'alachat. The month of Av, also we have the Ta'anit of Tisha B'Av. The month of Elul, we have Selichot. And so we have 3 months that the 3 holidays were taken from these 3 months. And they were shifted to the month of Tishrei. That's what the Hidah Kadosh says. That's the reason why we have in the month of Tishrei 4 holidays put together. Rahi, give me a break. 1 month Rosh Hashanah, easy. 1 month Kippur, easy. 1 month Sukkot, easy. 1 month Shemini Aseret Simchat Torah, super easy. But then suddenly, what do we have? Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, Sukkot, Shemini Aseret, Simchat Torah, all in 21 days, 22 days. Marathonic. That happened because of the Egel. Rosh Hashanah was supposed to be in Tammuz, Kippur in Av, Sukkot in Elul, and Shemini Aseret Simchat Torah in Tishrei. That's what the Hida Kadosh writes. Don't ask questions on this statement because there are no answers. Maybe there are answers. Sefer HaYetzirah, the world Shara Kavanot. I don't have the answers. If it comes from the Hida, that's better than FDIC insured. Big time. Holy. He's the one that rearranged his body after he was dead for 150 years, when his remains were transferred to Israel from Livorno, Italy. And what there were three Hachamim. Remember, we learned this last week. Rabbi Hasira, Hacham Laniado, and Hacham Mordechai Eliyahu. And the remains were moving as he was about to be buried. So Hacham Mordechai Eliyahu says, Marana Hida, we went to the mikveh, we did everything the way you wrote. We're going to give you a chance, rearrange yourself, and then we're going to lower the casket to the ground. And that's exactly what happened. But for that, go to itorah.com and look at the class of last week. It should be something on the title. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says to the Jewish women, since you sanctify my name by refusing, and Aharon HaKohen knew this, because what Aharon HaKohen said to the men, go to your wives. So what Aharon HaKohen figured, the wives are going to telling the husband, forget about it. How can you go against Moshe? How can you go against God? But the men were so desperate. The Erev Rav, they were the instigators. They were so desperate in destabilizing the Jewish people spiritually that they did it by themselves. And God says to the ladies, you sanctify my name, I'm going to give you a gift called Rosh Hodesh. That's why the Halakha calls, and many Sefarim HaKedoshim call Rosh Hodesh Yom Tov the Nashim, the holiday for the Jewish wife. That's God's gift to the Jewish women. Additionally, there is one more concept that in the beracha of the Rosh Chodesh Musaf, what do we say? Baruch Atah Hashem, Mekadesh Israel Berashe Hodashim. Mekadesh is about Zemanim, that's for the holidays. Mekadesh Shabbat, for Shabbat. Mekadesh Israel Berashe Hodashim is about Rosh Chodesh. So what's the common word in Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, and Yom Tov? Mekadesh. That these 3 days in the calendar are days of holiness. And to tap it off all together is the day of Rosh Chodesh, as we learned yesterday about Yom Kippur Katan, the day of Rosh Chodesh, Gedulato kemo Yom Kippurim. The greatness of Rosh Chodesh is equal to Yom Kippur without the restrictions of Yom Kippur, with one source, the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, that says, Rashi Chodashim le'amecha natata zeman kapara. The moment of the atonement is activated every Rosh Chodesh. Means that is, as I said before in the earlier minyan, we turn the page on Rosh Chodesh. We finished a chapter yesterday. Last night we began with a new chapter. So B'ezrat Hashem, let it be Rosh Chodesh Tammuz should truly bring the great Yeshua for all of Am Israel. Amen. This was part 1 of today's class. It's later than usual because it's Rosh Chodesh, Tefillah is longer, but nevertheless, we continue with our learning. I'm going to keep it, with your permission, short and sweet. So the Sefer Hasidim brings messages for everyone. Even though it's called Sefer Hasidim, has nothing to do with the Hasidic movement. It has to do how every Yehudi can become a Hasid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the message of Sefer Hasidim. Actually, the author of Sefer Hasidim, Rabbi Yehuda Hasid, he came from, if I recall correctly, he came from Germany. In Germany, the Hasidic movement was almost non-existent. No, the Baal Shem Tov was from Poland, Hungary, Ukraine. That's where the Baal Shem Tov came. But there was a discrepancy in time. But Sefer Rabbi Yehuda Hasid wrote a book suitable for every Jew. That's what Sefer Hasidim is. Valuable. Thank you. Sefer Hasidim, it's written with one goal. Let me give every Jew tips for life. Yesterday, remember, or 2 days ago, Sefer Hasidim message was, be a Hacham, be a wise person, stay quiet. All, including when the rabbi speaks. You got it? Thank you. You know, sometimes I have echo coming from the left, from the sound. I feel maybe is the static of the system. I don't know where it's coming from. Okay? But not only that, the Gemara mentioned also the benefits of quiet, because the person is in control of the silence instead of becoming the slave of the word. That is from Sefer Hasidim. Today's message of Sefer Hasidim is about money management. Money management. Very interesting. Something that the younger generation can utilize a couple of boost of encouragement tips, because today we live in a society that consumption and spending money, it became not even water. It used to be, they call it cash flow. Why they call it cash flow? Usually the water flows, but that's what happens with the water. That's why we say every day in the tefillah, Yochelemo kakash. Okay, that's from the Shira. What does it mean, Yochelemo kakash? The fire consumes the straw. If you have straw in Hebrew, kash is straw, hay, very easily to burn. That's what the pasuk says. Yochelemo kakash. You burn the money. Yani you spend the money so fast. It takes you a whole week to get a paycheck, and in 3 minutes, in an hour or two, money is gone. Rahel. And doesn't come back. Now, so Sefer Hasidim says, I'm going to give you a tip to live a more comfortable life. When I mean the comfort level, says Sefer Hasidim, we're not talking about the physical aspect. You can have a car that is comfortable, right? A mattress that is comfortable, a Shabbat dining room set that is comfortable, etc. He's talking about the comfort of the mind. How to have tranquility in your mind. How to have peace of mind. Now, he says here, and again, I don't recall in which generation Sefer Hasidim lived. Please search Rabbi Yehuda Hasid. Maybe 300 years ago, even more. Let me ask you a question. Did he have WhatsApp or Amazon, Instacart, or any of the things that we have today that become like a constant magnet? Spend, buy me, Amazon deals, Cyber Day, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Red Thursday, whatever. Each day has a different color, okay? No, later. Okay, before. Okay, so the book is already over 200 years ago. Even more, 300 years ago. That was the printing of the book. So the Rabbi Yehuda Hasid probably lived earlier, 700 years. Wow, so we're talking about a time that life was simple and easygoing without the demands that we have today. Insurance, life insurance, car insurance, home insurance, medicine insurance. Yani you work for the insurance company. Liability insurance. You work for the company, the insurance company. You don't work to provide for your family. You first have insurance, then you eat. Correct or no? Hazaku Baruch, you're lucky. So do me a favor, don't grow too fast. Take it easy. Enjoy your youthfulness, and if whatever you make some money, learn from this age to put something on the side. Because as the person grows, the family grows, the expenses grow. And don't buy on impulse. Sometimes people buy on impulse and by default, they spend more. So what happens if I spend more, but I don't make so much based on you got into debt? We're not talking about mortgage, that you have something tangible. Talking about restaurants, cars, luxury items. If you cannot pay for it, tighten your belt. And that's what it says here. Perishut, penay lalev, umenuha laguf. It gives your heart easiness. And your body feels relaxed. You go to sleep at night, you don't owe money. I'm not talking about business debt that creates a cash flow. Money comes in, money goes out. Mortgage is something at least substantial, tangible. But if you put yourself on debt for going on vacation, or going to restaurants, or going to a Pesach program, basically Safra Hasidim says you're killing yourself because the pressure mounts. And once the pressure mounts, your heart doesn't feel good emotionally. Physically, your body's completely stressed out. And not only that, that if a person goes that route, the body or the reaction of the person is so powerful that if they need to tighten the belt, they can't. Because they are used to such a level, and now suddenly you're telling them, tighten your belt a bit. I can't. Go the middle of the road. You don't have to go to extremes neither. And especially to the extremes of being in debt just for luxury items. That's what Sefer Hasidim of today brings. A short lesson, 1 of 5, but today I'm going to do it short and sweet because they're already later than usual. So Be'ezat Hashem, this is class Economics 101. Economics 101 as a Harabat Sadiq. But also when it comes to education of children, and I'm going to say this and will this, to say yes every time to our children, it's also a recipe for disaster. Because the day that you need to say no, they may have a problem with it. Expect automatically. Now, to say no every time also is not healthy neither. But the parents need to pray that HaKadosh Baruch Hu guides them when to say yes, when to say no, or when to say not now. Let's see what we can do about it. In other words, have a certain open mind and flexibility, not only to educate them that things don't just you go out and the money is flowing on your head. How hard parents work. How hard you work. How hard you work. Everybody, how hard you work. Everybody works hard to put food on the table, to take care of our families. But sometimes kids don't understand that. And the reason why not, because at home, that's how sometimes they live and they talk and they comment. And that creates like a false impression that everything is fine and dandy, when actually it is not. And then you gotta deal with the side effects, the tension of the heart, which affects the body of the person. That's the Sefer Hasidim message for everyone. Then this is the message for the entire world. But if this message will be broadcasted to the entire world, you know, many luxury companies will not be happy with it. And again, I don't think there is anything wrong to have a nice house, a nice watch, a nice car, but try to make sure that is within your affordability parameters and not getting into debt just to show an external image that is not the reality, whatever that may be. Okay, my dear friends, Hodesh Tov B'Siman Tov. We're going to do Kaddish and Ashkava right after Rabbi Hananiah. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hananiah